Good afternoon. Welcome to the March 12th, 2024 Suffolk Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. Ms. Cobb, will you please call order?
Roll call roll. Richard Eslick.
Here.
Shantae Hall. Corey Cornegay.
Here.
Melissa Venable.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum of 3. Are there any corrections to the previous BZA minutes? No? Seeing none. May I have a motion? We'll just do this verbally out loud. I have a motion to accept. Just say aye.
Aye.
And a second. Great. Sorry. I'm going to get here. Hold on a second. The minutes are accepted. Let's see. Our first public hearing this afternoon is BZA 37-2023, 112 North 11th Street by Brennan Branch Enterprises. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 37-2023. The applicant, Brennan Branch, on behalf of BC Branch Enterprises Incorporated, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 5 feet and to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35F *LB*6, located on North 11th Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 5 feet and to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We'll now have staff analysis and recommendation read by Melvion Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
Good afternoon, Chairman of the Board, Board members, Zoning Administrator, applicant, staff, and guests. My name is Melvion Knight, and I am the Assistant Zoning Administrator for the City of Suffolk. The item that I will be presenting to the Board today is BZA 37-2023. The applicant, Brennan Branch, on the behalf of BC Branch Enterprises, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, parentheses C, Table 407-1, parentheses L, dimensional standards to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 5 feet and the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet for the construction of a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35F *LB*6, located at 112 North 11th Street, Suffolk, Virginia. Wallerville voting borough, zoning classification RM residential medium. The variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. A public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. Following the completion of the subdivision determination, the staff found that the pre-existing line to be reinstated on the property, creating 2 30-foot wide lots on the location of North 11th Street. The applicant expressed that the RM zoning district standards prohibits the development of a 20-foot wide single-family dwelling according to the standards identified in Section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3D of the Unified Development Ordinance. The dimensional standards requires that newly platted RM lots have a lot area or a land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum frontage of 60 feet and a minimum width when measured at the front setback line of 80. This property calculates to 3,300 square feet in land area, which is non-conforming when compared to the minimum requirements for the RM zoning district. According to the exhibits provided, the property would not support a 20-foot wide dwelling. And again, underneath Section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, 3 of the Unified Development Ordinance, the zoning administrator is allowed to grant up to a 30% reduction of the front, side, and rear yard setbacks on substandard lots. Unfortunately, the reduction request exceeds that 30% allowance for an administrative variance. Therefore, with the information that was provided and the items reviewed, it showed that the substandard lot would not support a 20-foot wide structure. Therefore, staff recommended approval of the request. What you see here is the exhibit that was submitted inside the packet. The survey provided by the applicant shows that the property is located along a underdeveloped street identified as Railroad Avenue. And then it also is adjacent or fronts on North 11th Street. The setback along Railroad Avenue, they are requesting that side yard adjacent to the street to be reduced down to 5 from 25, and then the interior lot line to be reduced from 10 to 5 feet. This is the exhibit that was disclosed in the beginning, which shows where staff did an analysis of the property, reviewed the findings from the case history to show that there was a pre-existing lot line separating lot 5 and 6. They declared it to be viable for reinstatement. That was done through the subdivision determination through the planning division. The image here is just an illustration of the proposed home that was presented by the applicant. This is a model set that has been submitted to the city several times and meets the requirement of both the building code as well as the Unified Development Ordinance. This concludes my presentation. Staff is available for any comments or questions, and also the applicant is here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was just kind of taking a look at all the different images we have here in our packet. I'll turn to the board. Are there any questions for Melvion? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We will now open our public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Hope everybody's doing well. Brennan Branch, BC Branch Enterprises. I live at 1500 Copeland Road, Suffolk, Virginia. Can help you answer any questions you might have. As she pointed out, the paper street on the right-hand side is, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Cobb, it is a paper street, correct? Yeah, it's fully wooded. But if I can answer any questions, I'll be glad to.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Mr. Branch, is there anything else you'd like to add at this time? Okay, that'll close this public hearing. Do we have any questions, comments, or a motion?
A motion for approval. Exactly what he's doing over there for that part and everything, that where that paper road is just straight like grass and trees that's over there. And I don't see it being developed at all.
I'll second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. Ms. Cobb, would you please call for a vote?
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shante Hall, Corey Carnegie,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion passes 3-0.
Congratulations, Mr. Branch. Typically, I'm very anti-typically development near this close to a railroad, but in this case, because you have the 20, I know it says it's an easement, but they wouldn't build a road within 25 feet or 25-foot reservation, so you have that built-in buffer. So in this case, I feel a little bit more comfortable with it, but typically I am very opposed to having homes this close to railroads when we can avoid it. So, thank you. Moving to our next,
Ms. Cobb, is there any way we could move BZA 07-2024 up so Mr. Branch doesn't have to stick around for the next 5? I know how busy he is.
are you comfortable with that? We're going to go ahead and change our agenda, and we're going to move BZA 07-2024 to our next item to be heard. That's map number 35H1C48, Brennan Branch, Branch Enterprises. Ms. Kyle, would you please read the caption?
Sure. Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 7-2024. The applicant, Brennan Branch, on behalf of BC Branch Enterprises Incorporated, is requesting a variance to reduce the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 16.7 feet, and the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35H, parentheses 1, parentheses C48, located on Hunter Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 16.7 feet and the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. And we will now have staff analysis and recommendation read by Kevin Alexander, zoning inspector.
Good afternoon, Board, Chair, all that are in attendance. As previously stated, my name is Kevin Alexander, City of Suffolk zoning inspector. The applicant, Brennan Branch, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Article 4, Sections 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards L and K, to reduce the required front yard setbacks from 25 feet to 16.7 feet and the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35H, parentheses 1, C48, located at 0 Hunter Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Wellyville, voting borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. The variance request was, sorry you guys, but looking for my posting. The variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to the adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2, 2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. So here's the actual land map showing the aerial of the subject property on the corner lot. Here's the actual site map showing the lot and the proposed dwelling where it would sit adjacent to the County Street and Hunter Street. It's also showing that it has 2 parking spaces on the site. That's just a blown up version. Here's the model set in which the applicant proposes to use. It's the Cohen model. It's actually a typical model, I believe, that's been used previously. It shows the elevation and the actual layout of the first and second floor. The applicant, without this variance, the applicant doesn't have the actual space to build, and it's actually non-conforming. So staff is in support of Mr. Branch and his BZA request. If you have any questions for me, I'll be right here having a seat.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It doesn't appear that we have any additional questions. We will now open the public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Mr. Branch, would you like to make any comments?
We actually developed a lot straight from the set 401 Hunter. Same exact size, same exact house. And y'all had approved that. Just so, if I can answer anything, let me know.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Althelia Cahan, and I reside at 302 Webb Street. I'm on the next street from Hunter. I am in support of your approval of Mr. Branch's request for a setback. Having been raised in this neighborhood, my home house I had demolished, and my husband and I rebuilt. So I have a stake in this community. And I don't know Mr. Branch, but I've seen his work, and I certainly do approve of it. And it will have affordable housing in my neighborhood, and I'd like to see that. Thank you much.
Thank you so much for coming out, ma'am. Thalia. Miss Thalia, can you repeat your last name for me?
K-Han.
Kahan?
H-A-N. And my first name is Athalia.
Athalia.
T-H-A-L-I.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Mr. Branch, do you have anything additional? That'll close this public hearing. Do we have any comments, questions, or a motion?
Motion for approval.
We have a motion for approval
Second?
and a second of that motion. Any discussion of the motion? Ms. Cobb, will you please call for a vote?
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shante Hall, Corey Carnegie,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion passes 3-0.
Terrific. We'll go back into our original order. Congratulations. BZA 03-2024, map number 35F, star LO, star 6, Beach Cove Builders LLC. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 3-2024. The applicant Beach Cove Builders LLC is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 4.6 feet in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35S *LO *6, located on 4th Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 4.6 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation read by Kevin Alexander.
Thank you again, Board. Kevin Alexander, CS Suffolk Zoning Inspector. As Ms. Cobb stated, the applicant Beach Cove Builders is requesting a variance from the United Development Ordinance, UDO, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the minimum required side yard setback from 10 feet to 4.6 feet in order to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax and parcel 35F star LO star 6, located at 0 North 4th Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Wellerville Voting Borough, zoning classification RM residential medium. The variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to the adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. As you see here, this is the general location map. It's located within the core support, which supports the housing and, support of residential housing to support the nearby retail and business uses. Here's the zoning land map that kind of shows you the property location as well as surrounding parcels. Here's the public hearing, the posting of the public hearing on the actual site. Here's the actual site plan. This too will also have a parcel that will support 2 parking spaces. It also will be able to support at least a 20-foot wide structure. Without a variance, it would be impossible to actually build. So this lot is non-conforming, and for that reason, staff actually supports moving forward with the variance. Also, here's a blown-up version of the actual parcel and subject. Moving forward, we have the actual, some renderings of the Tessa model. It's showing the elevations as well as the square footage, also some exterior aesthetics. But like I previously said, staff supports this, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to answer any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Have we had applications from Beach Cove Builders LLC previously that you know of?
To my knowledge, no.
Thank you. We will open our public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to present this application? Looks like there's not. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Well, that'll close this public hearing. Do we have any concerns, comments, or a motion? Or we could also table this and hear from this particular applicant?
No, it seems like to me that it's in line with other requests that we've had. And based on that, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second of that motion.
Just like to have two of them right behind each other. Is one that's 10 feet for going to 4 feet, and then one is just 10 feet going to 5 feet, which is both on them side by side. So we could just, if we can do one,
I think we'll have to read the caption and hear, otherwise he could have read them simultaneously. I think my only hesitation is that 4 feet 6 inches. 5 foot is typically the minimum in my head, although that looks like it's only on the rear corner. The fronts are both at 5 feet. So it looks like we have a motion and a second, so we can go ahead and call for a vote.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shante Hall, Corey Cornegay,
yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
So our fourth item today, BZA 04-2024, map number 35F*LO*7, Beach Cove Builders LLC. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 4-2024. The applicant, Beach Cove Builders LLC, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 6.4 feet in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35F*LO*7, located on 4th Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 4.6 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We'll now have the staff analysis and recommendation read by Kevin Alexander, zoning inspector.
Thank you again, Board. Kevin Alexander, City of Suffolk Zoning Inspector. Just as previously stated, the applicant Beach Cove Builders LLC is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the minimum required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet in order to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35F*LO*7, located at 0 North 4th Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Welleville Voting Borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium. The variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to the adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. This property is also located within the core support, which supports newer housing to support the adjacent retail and businesses nearby. This is the zoning land map. It's showing you it's surrounding and adjacent parcels and the actual location. This is the public hearing sign that was posted on site for that particular proposed project. Here's the actual site plan. This too will also encompass two off-street parking spaces, a single-family dwelling, 20-foot wide. The lot is substandard and it's not conforming, so we will support a variance due to that. Here's a blown-up version of the actual site plan. And here's the model set. This too also is showing the Tessa model set, which shows the floor plan and living space, the elevations, and the exterior aesthetics. Once again, staff is in support of this variance due to the nonconformance of the lot. If I have any questions for me, I'm available.
Thank you, sir. I do want to make a correction. It looks like according to Canada Land and Marine Surveying plat that you just showed on the screen and we have in our package, that the same situation occurs as the last one, and the smallest side yard setback is actually 4.6 and not 5 feet. So I think that might be a correction we need to make in the plan, just so that the applicant doesn't run into a problem if this is to be approved as we move forward. So the rear left corner of the house shows at 4.6
Right.
feet and not 5 feet. So we may want to correct the package, and I wanted to make sure we all understood that. It's not 5 foot. The minimum is the 4.6 specifically in that rear left corner, not the front setbacks, or not at the front face of the lot. Are there any questions? Any other additional questions? And again, I want to reiterate something you had mentioned, that these lots are, if we do not approve today, that, or if we do approve, it's based on a hardship, and that these lots are not buildable if a exception isn't provided to them through this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will again open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of? Is there anyone here to speak against? Is there anyone to speak at all? That'll close this public hearing. Do we have a motion for BZA 5/2024?
Motion for approval.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second by Mr. Eslick. Any discussion? And again, this motion is based on the 8 findings and the hardship that this lot would be undevelopable if this approval was not made today. Would you please call for a vote, Ms. Cobb?
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shante Hall, Corey Cornegay,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move on to our 5th item, BZA 5/2024, map number 35E, W*21*22, BMDP LLC. Ms. Cobb, would you please would you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 5-2024. The applicant BMDP LLC is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 6 feet in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35E (C) (W) *21 *22, located on North Division Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 6 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation read by Melvion Knight.
Good afternoon again. The item being presented to the board is BZA 05-2024. The applicant DP LLC is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, (L), to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 6 feet to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35E (C) W *21 *22. The property is located on North Division Street, Suffolk, Virginia, inside of the Wellerville voting borough, zoning classification RM. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a public notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. A public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant has expressed that the RM zoning setback prohibits the development of a 20-foot wide single-family dwelling according to the standards noted in Section 31-801, (E), (1), (A), (3D) of the Unified Development Ordinance. the dimensional standards for newly platted lots, and the RM zoning district requires a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum frontage of 60 and a minimum lot width of 80 feet when measured at the front setback line. This property calculates to 3,840 square feet in land area, which is non-conforming when compared to the minimum requirements of the RM zoning district. According to the exhibit provided, the property will not support the development of a 20-foot wide single-family dwelling. And under 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3 of the Unified Development Ordinance, the zoning administrator is allowed to grant up to a 30% reduction for the front, side, and rear yard setbacks. Unfortunately, the reduction request exceeds the 30% allowance, which could be granted by the zoning administrator. Therefore, under the standards and the information that was submitted by the applicant, the construction of the 20-foot wide structure would not be supported underneath the current RM standards. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the request. The illustration shown here is an exhibit of the proposed home that was submitted by the applicant. According to the illustration shown here, this is a corner lot which abuts the Bank Street extension, and it also fronts on 4th Street. So the area that's along Bank Street extension would request for...
Ms. Knight, that's not this application.
It's the one that's on Division Street.
This is the one on Division Street that we're looking at. It's a center lot, it's not an end lot.
Okay, my apologies. Well, if you had the item inside of your packet, or if it was displayed on the screen, the interior lot would be requesting for the setback reductions along both interior lines would be adjacent to two properties, making an interior lot. The site would be requesting for the reduction from 10 feet to 6 feet, which will allow for the construction of the 20-foot home, which would meet the standards according to our non-conforming chapter inside of Article 8. Again, staff does approve the request as submitted, and I am available for any questions that the board may have. I do apologize for that error.
No problem. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Do we have any questions? This model looks exactly like the model of the last two applications, even though it seems to be a different applicant.
Yes, ma'am. They may have consulted the same firm to prepare the package, but it is a standard model that has been used, but this is the first time that I've seen this model be submitted by this company.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak against the application? Is there anything? Okay.
Sorry, I was a little confused when she started mentioning a corner lot.
Can you tell us your name and address, please?
My name is Shamia Scott.
Shania Scott?
Shamia.
Shamia. And your address?
It's for 306 North Division Street.
Your address, not the address
Not
to
the address of the
house.
property, but your actual physical address.
976 Thomas Circle, Portsmouth, Virginia, 23704.
Thank you. Go ahead, I apologize.
So, yeah, she stated we're just requesting a side yard variance for 10 feet to 6 feet to construct a new family single dwelling.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, or?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Terrific. Is there anyone here to speak against? Is there anything else you'd like to add, Shamia? Thank you very much. That'll close the public hearing. Is there any comments, questions, or a motion?
Motion for approval.
We have a motion for approval.
And I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Eslick. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, Ms. Cobb, will you please take a vote?
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shante Hall, Corey Cornegay,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
Congratulations, ma'am. And our last application for the day, BZA 6, 2024, map number 35E, parentheses C, W star PT 21, and it's the same applicant, BMDP LLC. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 6-2024. The applicant BMDP LLC is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 6 feet in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35E, parentheses C, parentheses W, asterisk PT 21, located on North Division Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 6 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be as articulated as part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation read by Melvion Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
The item being presented to the board today is BZA 06-2024. The applicant, BMDP LLC, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, parentheses L, to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 6 feet to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35E, parentheses C, W, asterisk, PT 21, located on North Division Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Wellandville voting borough, zoning classification residential medium. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant expressed that the RM zoning district setbacks prohibits the development of a 20-foot wide single-family according to the standards of Section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3D of the Unified Development Ordinance. The dimensional standards requirements for newly platted lots in the RM zoning district requires a total lot area of 10,000 square feet in land area, 60 feet of frontage, a minimum lot width of 80 feet when measured at the front setback line. The property calculates to 3,840 square feet in land area, which is non-conforming when compared to the RM zoning district standards. According to the illustration or exhibits provided, the property will not support a 20-foot wide dwelling, and under Section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3 of the Unified Development Ordinance, this allows the zoning administrator to grant up to a 30% reduction on the front, side, and rear yard setbacks. Unfortunately, the reduction exceeds the 30% allowance, which could be granted underneath an administrative variance. And under the RM zoning district standards, a 20-foot wide structure would not be supported on the substandard lot. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the zoning request. This illustration shows the interior lot identified as Lot 21, where they have proposed a 20-foot wide structure, which meets the 6-foot side yard setback if it is granted according to this request. The applicant has come again with the same model, which was presented, which is slightly different. I think this one is the Shelby model, which is still a standard 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath structure, which would measure 20 feet when facing the public street. This model would comply with our standards if this variance request was granted by the board. Staff is available for any questions that the board may have, and the applicant is present for questions if there be any. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Righty.
This will open our last public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application?
Good afternoon, board. My name is Travis Collins. I'm the owner of Joanne Truckers and Builders, 3105 Lyons Ave, Norfolk, Virginia. Like she said, I'm trying to get the size variance from 10 to 6. to construct a new construction home for affordable housing, and that variance would definitely be good for me to start building. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, is there anyone to speak in opposition? Sir, is there anything you would like to add? Thank you so much. That closes this public hearing, and again, I will reiterate that we are voting or making a motion as it relates to the hardship, the 8 findings, as it relates to the 8 findings within our package, and that typically is based upon if we see a hardship. And in my opinion, these lots would not be developable if, based on our ordinance, Suffolk's ordinance, if we didn't make a motion in favor today. So with that said, do we have a discussion, questions, comments? We have a motion for approval.
And I'll second.
And a second for that motion. Ms. Cobb, would you please call for a vote?
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shantae Hall, Corey Carnegie,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes. Congratulations, sir. Good luck to you. I don't believe we have any additional items on our agenda. Do we have a meeting next
We
month?
have 2.
We have 2 items next month. Thank you very much. That concludes our public hearing.